Zara's scaled hands trembled as she pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the detention cell. The stories echoed in her mind like warnings from the depths of space itself. Humans were monsters, apex predators who hunted entire species to extinction. Their ships appeared like harbingers of doom across the galaxy, leaving behind nothing but silent worlds and scattered bones. The Velkari had learned this truth too late. Her people, once proud traders spanning 3-star systems, now numbered fewer than 1,000 survivors scattered across refugee camps. The humans had come with their massive vessels, weapons that could crack planets, and an insatiable hunger for conquest. At least that's what every survivor claimed. The cell door hissed open with mechanical precision. Zara's breath caught in her throat as a shadow filled the doorway. The human stepped inside, and she finally saw one of the legendary destroyers face to face. He stood tall, easily twice her height, with pale skin stretched over a frame that spoke of predatory strength. Dark hair crowned his head, and when he turned toward her, she saw eyes the color of deep water. "Please," she whispered in broken standard, the universal language all species used for trade and diplomacy. "I have nothing left. My family, my world, everything is gone." The human moved closer, and Zara noticed something unexpected. His movements weren't the aggressive stalking she'd imagined. Each step seemed measured, careful, as if he was trying not to frighten her further. When he crouched down to her level, she saw something in those blue eyes that made no sense according to everything she'd been told. Concern. Actual, genuine concern. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice softer than she'd expected. The words came out in perfect Velkari, her own native tongue. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm with the Human Refugee Assistance Program." Zara's mind reeled. The humans had a refugee assistance program? But they were the ones creating refugees. Nothing about this made sense. She studied his face, searching for deception, for the cruel satisfaction she'd been told all humans possessed when they looked upon their victims. Instead, she found something that shook her understanding of the universe. This human, this supposed monster, was looking at her with the same expression her father used to wear when he found injured animals in their garden. It was the look of someone who wanted to help, not harm. Marcus slowly reached into a pocket of his uniform, and Zara flinched backward. But instead of a weapon, he withdrew a small device. The portable translator hummed to life, even though he'd already demonstrated he could speak her language. "I know you have no reason to trust me," he continued, settling cross-legged on the floor to make himself appear less intimidating. "Your people have been through something terrible, but I need you to know that what happened to the Velkari worlds wasn't sanctioned by the human coalition. It was pirates, raiders using stolen human ships." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Pirates, not the official human military, but every news broadcast, every survivor account, every piece of evidence pointed to a coordinated attack by human forces. The ships bore human markings. The weapons were human designs. The tactics matched human military doctrine. "You lie," she managed to say, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "The ships, the weapons, everything was human." Marcus nodded slowly as if he'd expected this response. Yes, they were human ships and weapons, but they were stolen. Captain Sarah Rodriguez and her pirate fleet have been using captured coalition vessels to raid independent worlds for months. "We've been hunting them across 3 sectors. He paused, studying her face. "The reason you're here on this station is because we finally caught them. Captain Rodriguez and her crew are in the detention blocks below us right now." Zara's world tilted on its axis. If what this human said was true, then everything she believed about the attack, about humans themselves, was wrong. But years of propaganda and survivor accounts couldn't be dismissed so easily. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, surprised by her own boldness. "Your species has conquered half the galaxy. Everyone knows humans consume weaker races." Something flickered across Marcus's features. Pain, perhaps, or disappointment. He reached for another pocket, moving slowly and deliberately, and withdrew a small holographic projector. The device activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. "These are the worlds under human protection," he said, pointing to green dots scattered across the display. 47 different species, all maintaining their independence, their cultures, their governments. "We provide defense and trade partnerships, nothing more." The hologram shifted, showing detailed images of various worlds. Zara saw cities that looked nothing like human architecture. Beings of all shapes and sizes going about their daily lives. Children playing in alien playgrounds. Markets filled with goods from dozens of different worlds. This is New Theris, Marcus explained, indicating one particular world. The Therians asked for our help when their sun began dying. We helped them relocate their entire population to a new world and terraform it to match their original environment. It took 20 years and cost more resources than most planets generate in a century. Zara stared at the images. The Therians in the hologram looked healthy, happy. Their cities were rebuilt in the style of their original architecture, not converted to human designs. Their children played games that looked distinctly Therian, not human entertainment. If humans are so benevolent, she said slowly, why does every species in the outer rim fear you? Why do the news broadcasts speak of human aggression and expansion? Marcus deactivated the hologram and looked directly into her eyes. Because fear sells news subscriptions. Because some corporations profit from species remaining isolated and suspicious of each other. And because there are humans like Captain Rodriguez who give us all a terrible reputation. The cell fell silent except for the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. Zara found herself studying this human with new eyes. His uniform bore no weapons. His hands showed calluses that spoke of manual labor, not the soft fingers of a pampered conqueror. When he moved, he was careful not to make sudden gestures that might startle her. Most surprisingly of all, he waited. He didn't demand her trust or try to convince her further. He simply sat there, giving her time to process everything he'd told her, respecting her need to think through this revelation at her own pace. For the first time since the attack on her homeworld, Zara felt something other than fear and despair. She felt curious. 3 days passed before Zara saw Marcus again. During that time, she'd been moved from the detention cell to what the station staff called temporary housing. The room was small but comfortable, with a bed sized appropriately for her species, food that had been carefully researched to match Velkari dietary needs, and even a small viewport showing the stars beyond. Every detail contradicted what she'd been told about human treatment of other species. The food wasn't the nutrient paste she'd expected, but actual meals prepared with spices that reminded her of home. The bed linens were soft, not the rough materials prisoners usually received. Most surprisingly, the door wasn't locked. She could leave whenever she wanted, but where would she go? Her world was gone. Her family was dead. The few Velkari survivors were scattered across the galaxy, most of them in refugee camps or working dangerous jobs on frontier worlds just to survive. When Marcus appeared at her door, he carried a steaming cup of something that smelled remarkably like keth, the traditional Velkari morning beverage. I thought you might like this, he said, offering the cup. The replicators took some adjusting, but I think we got the recipe right. Zara accepted the drink cautiously. The first sip sent warmth spreading through her chest, and she couldn't hide her surprise. It tasted exactly like the keth her grandmother used to make, with just the right balance of bitter and sweet. How did you know about keth? She asked. I studied Velkari culture for 6 months before coming here, Marcus replied, settling into a chair across from her. After we captured Rodriguez's fleet, the Coalition assigned me to work with Velkari survivors. I wanted to understand your people better. The admission stunned her. Humans were supposedly arrogant conquerors who viewed other species as beneath their notice. Yet this human had spent months learning about her people, not to exploit them, but to help them. I have questions, she said finally. Marcus smiled, and she noticed how the expression transformed his entire face. I hoped you would. The other survivors I've met, they all tell the same story. Human ships attacked our worlds without warning. Human weapons destroyed our cities. How can you claim these were pirates when everything points to official human military action? Marcus pulled out his holographic projector again, but this time the display showed detailed technical specifications. This is a Coalition destroyer, the type our Navy actually uses. The projection rotated slowly, highlighting various features. Notice the engine configuration, the weapon placements, the communication arrays. The image shifted to show a different ship, one that looked almost identical but with subtle differences. This is what Rodriguez was using. Same basic design, but the engines are modified civilian units. The weapons are black market purchases, not military grade. The hull plating is different too, thinner and cheaper. Zara leaned forward, studying the differences. They were small but significant. How would my people know to look for these distinctions during an attack? They wouldn't, Marcus admitted. And that was the point. Rodriguez wanted her raids to look like official Coalition actions. She hoped it would discourage retaliation and make it easier to fence stolen goods. The explanation made horrible sense. Pirates using false flags to avoid consequences was nothing new in galactic history. But the scale of the deception, the careful attention to detail required to fool entire populations, suggested a level of planning that went far beyond typical piracy. There's something else, Marcus continued. We recovered the communication logs from Rodriguez's flagship. She was working with partners on several worlds, people who profited from the chaos her raids created. The holographic display changed again, showing a complex web of connections between various individuals and organizations. Zara recognized some of the names as prominent figures in galactic media and commerce. Ferrith Industries, she whispered, seeing one name that made her blood run cold. They offered to buy Velkari mining rights just weeks before the attack. Rodriguez's attacks weren't random, Marcus said quietly. She targeted worlds with valuable resources. Then her partners would swoop in to buy the rights from desperate survivors at a fraction of their real value. The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. Her people hadn't been the victims of human aggression or even random piracy. They'd been deliberately targeted as part of an elaborate scheme to steal their resources. The humans weren't the monsters in this story. They were just another tool being used by the real villains. I need to see them, she said suddenly. Marcus looked confused. See who? The pirates. Rodriguez and her crew. I need to see the faces of the people who actually destroyed my world. Marcus hesitated. Zara, I'm not sure that's wise. Confronting them won't bring your family back. I know that, she snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. I'm sorry. I just need to understand. For months I've been carrying hatred for your entire species. If I was wrong about that, I need to know who I should actually hate. After a long moment, Marcus nodded. I can arrange a viewing. They won't be able to see or hear you, but you can observe their interrogation. 2 hours later, Zara stood behind one-way transparent aluminum, looking into an interrogation room. The woman sitting at the metal table didn't look like the monster she'd imagined. Captain Sarah Rodriguez appeared to be middle-aged with graying hair and tired eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a mass murderer. But when she spoke, her voice carried a casual callousness that made Zara's scales bristle. Look, you want to know why I hit the Velkari worlds? Because they were easy targets with valuable resources. Simple business decision. Rodriguez shrugged as if discussing the weather. Their defense systems were outdated. Their military was practically non-existent, and the mining rights on those worlds are worth billions. The human interrogator leaned forward. You killed thousands of innocent civilians. Casualties of business, Rodriguez replied without emotion. You think the big corporations don't do the same thing. They just use lawyers and economic manipulation instead of plasma cannons. My way is more honest. Zara pressed her hands against the transparent barrier, rage flooding through her system. This woman, this human, had spoken about the destruction of Zara's civilization like it was a quarterly profit report. There was no remorse, no acknowledgement of the lives destroyed. No recognition that her victims had been people with families and dreams and fears. But as she watched Rodriguez continue her testimony, describing the attacks with clinical detachment, Zara began to understand something important. This wasn't how all humans thought. Marcus's reaction to Rodriguez's words proved that. The human interrogator looked disgusted by her casual attitude toward mass murder. Even the guards standing by the walls appeared uncomfortable. Rodriguez wasn't representative of humanity any more than a Velkari criminal would represent all of Zara's people. She was simply an individual who had chosen to do terrible things for personal gain. When they left the observation room, Marcus walked beside Zara in comfortable silence. Finally, she spoke. She's not what I expected. What did you expect? Zara considered the question. A monster, I suppose. Someone who killed because they enjoyed it, or because they saw my people as inferior. But she doesn't care about us at all. We were just numbers on a profit sheet. Sometimes indifference is worse than hatred, Marcus said quietly. At least hatred acknowledges that the victim matters enough to feel strongly about. They walked through the station's corridors, passing humans and aliens working side by side. Zara noticed things she'd missed before. A human engineer helping a crystalline being repair a broken console. Children of 3 different species playing together in a small recreation area. A Therian artist painting a mural while human passers-by stopped to admire her work. Marcus, she said as they reached her quarters, What happens to me now, to the other Velkari survivors? The human paused at her door. That depends on what you want to happen. The Coalition has a resettlement program. We can help relocate Velkari survivors to suitable worlds, provide funding to rebuild your communities, even assist with terraforming if you want to establish a new homeworld. And in return, nothing, Marcus said simply. It's the right thing to do. For the first time since her world burned, Zara smiled. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Zara's quarters. A young human woman with bright red hair and engineering coveralls knocked on her door, carrying a toolkit and wearing an expression of nervous determination. Hello, the woman said in halting Velkari. My name is Emma Rodriguez. I'm Sarah Rodriguez's daughter. Zara's blood turned to ice. The daughter of the woman who had destroyed her world was standing at her door. Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door shut, to call for security, to do anything except stand there staring at this young human who shared the name of her family's killer. I know what you're thinking, Emma continued quickly, switching to standard when her Velkari failed her. And you're right to be afraid. But I need to speak with you, please. Against her better judgment, Zara stepped aside to let Emma enter. The young woman moved carefully, keeping her hands visible and maintaining distance between them. She set her toolkit down by the door and turned to face Zara with eyes that were nothing like her mother's. Where Sarah Rodriguez had shown cold indifference, Emma's eyes held pain and something that looked like shame. I didn't know, Emma said quietly. About what she was doing, I mean. Mom told me she was running salvage operations in the Outer Rim. Dangerous work, but honest. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Zara remained silent, studying this young human who claimed innocence. Emma appeared to be in her early 20s by human standards, with calloused hands that spoke of real work and the engineer's patch on her coveralls that indicated technical expertise. When the Coalition arrested her, Emma continued, they seized all her assets, including her ship logs. I read them, all of them, trying to understand what had really happened. Her voice broke slightly. The attack on your worlds, the casualties, the deliberate targeting of civilian areas. She documented everything like it was a routine operation. Emma pulled out a small data pad and set it on the table between them. These are the technical specifications for the weapons modifications she used. The ones that made human weapons more devastating against Velkari defensive systems. Zara looked at the data pad but didn't touch it. Why are you showing me this? Because I helped design them, Emma whispered. She asked me to improve the efficiency of her salvage lasers. Said she needed better cutting tools for breaking down derelict ships. I made those weapons more effective at penetrating hull plating. The admission hung in the air between them like a toxic cloud. Emma Rodriguez, through ignorance and manipulation, had helped make the weapons that destroyed Velkari cities more deadly. But as Zara looked at the young woman's face, she saw genuine horror at this realization. I can't undo what I helped her do, Emma said, but I can make sure it never happens again. I've been working with Coalition engineers to develop new defensive systems, ones that can counter the modifications I created. She gestured toward her toolkit. I came here to ask if you would help me. Your people's defensive systems, the ones my mother's fleet bypassed, they had some brilliant innovations. If I could understand how they worked, I might be able to create something that could protect other species from similar attacks. Zara stared at Emma, trying to process this request. The daughter of her people's destroyer wanted to work with her to prevent future massacres. It was either the ultimate insult or a genuine attempt at redemption. You want me to help you design weapons? Zara asked. No, Emma said firmly. Defenses, shields, early warning systems, emergency evacuation protocols, things that save lives instead of taking them. The distinction mattered, though Zara couldn't quite explain why. She moved to the viewport and stared out at the stars, thinking of her homeworld somewhere out there, now a cold and lifeless rock orbiting a distant sun. My brother was a defensive systems engineer, she said finally. Keth was working on a new type of energy shield when the attack came. He died trying to get it online. I'm sorry, Emma said, and the words sounded sincere. He always said that the best defense was understanding your enemy's weapons better than they did. Zara continued. If someone is using human technology to hurt people, then maybe human technology can be used to protect them too. She turned back to face Emma. I'll help you. Not for your mother and not to forgive what happened, but because Keth would have wanted his work to continue. Emma nodded gratefully. Thank you. I promise I won't waste this chance. They worked through the morning, Emma asking detailed questions about Velkari defensive systems, while Zara explained the principles behind her people's engineering. Despite her initial reluctance, Zara found herself impressed by Emma's technical knowledge and innovative thinking. The young human approached problems from angles that would never have occurred to Velkari engineers. Where Zara's people favored elegant, efficient solutions that worked within established parameters, Emma suggested radical modifications that pushed existing technology beyond its intended limits. What if we combined Velkari harmonic shielding with human adaptive algorithms? Emma suggested, sketching out a hybrid design. The harmonic resonance could distribute impact across a wider area, while the adaptive systems adjust the frequency in real time to counter incoming weapons. Zara studied the diagram with growing excitement. That could work, but you'd need massive processing power to calculate the resonance adjustments fast enough. Human quantum computers could handle it, Emma replied. And if we distributed the processing across multiple nodes, even destroying part of the system wouldn't bring down the whole defense grid. As they worked, other people began to arrive. Marcus appeared first, bringing lunch and staying to observe their collaboration. Then came Dr. Sarah Chen, a human physicist who contributed insights about energy distribution. A Therian mathematician named Christ offered suggestions about optimizing the harmonic equations. By evening, their small group had expanded to include representatives from 6 different species, all working together on what was becoming a revolutionary approach to planetary defense. Zara found herself in the strange position of leading a multi-species engineering team, her expertise in Velkari defensive systems making her the natural coordinator for the project. We're calling it the Harmony Protocol, Emma announced as they wrapped up the day's work. Defense systems that adapt and respond like a living organism, but with the mathematical precision that only technology can provide. Dr. Chen pulled up a simulation on the main display. Based on our preliminary calculations, a world protected by Harmony Protocol defenses could withstand the kind of attack that destroyed the Velkari colonies. The adaptive shielding would identify and counter the weapon modifications in real time. Zara watched the simulation run, seeing virtual Velkari cities surviving an assault identical to the one that had killed her family. It was both hopeful and heartbreaking. The technology came too late for her world, but it might save others. How long until we can build a working prototype? She asked. 6 months for a basic version, Marcus replied. Maybe a year for full planetary implementation. Chris, the Therian mathematician, looked up from her calculations. The Coalition Science Council will want to review our work before approving construction. Then we better make sure it's perfect, Zara said firmly. As the team dispersed for the evening, Emma lingered behind. Zara, I know this doesn't make up for what happened to your people. Nothing could. But maybe we can make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Zara considered the young human who carried the burden of her mother's crimes. Emma could have hidden her connection to the attacks, could have changed her name and pretended no relationship existed. Instead, she'd chosen to face the consequences and try to build something positive from the wreckage. Emma, Zara said as the young woman gathered her tools, your mother made her choices, but you're making different ones. That matters. For the first time that day, Emma smiled. It was a small, tentative expression, but it carried hope. 2 months into the Harmony Protocol development, Zara received news that changed everything. Marcus found her in the engineering lab, his expression grave as he approached her workstation where she was calibrating harmonic resonance frequencies. Zara, we need to talk, he said quietly. There's been a development. She looked up from her calculations, immediately sensing the tension in his voice. What kind of development? We found more Velkari survivors. A lot more. The words hit her like a physical blow. For months, she'd believed that fewer than 1,000 of her people remained alive scattered across the galaxy. The thought that more had survived filled her with desperate hope and terrifying questions. How many? She whispered. Nearly 50,000, Marcus replied. Hidden in the outer rim systems. Some in refugee camps we didn't know existed. Others working in isolated colonies. A few groups have been living on generation ships, afraid to settle anywhere permanent. Zara's legs gave out and she sank into her chair. 50,000 Velkari. Her people weren't as close to extinction as she'd believed. Somewhere out there, Velkari children were growing up. Velkari artists were creating new works. Velkari scientists were making discoveries. Where are they? She asked. Marcus activated a holographic star map showing dozens of red dots scattered across multiple sectors. Everywhere. Some are thriving, others are barely surviving. But they all share one thing in common. What's that? They're all terrified of humans, Marcus said sadly. Every survivor group we've contacted refuses coalition assistance. They've heard the same stories you did about human aggression and expansion. They think our offer of help is a trap. The implication became clear immediately. Her people were out there, suffering and afraid, rejecting the very help that could save them because they believed humans were their enemies. The propaganda and misinformation that had shaped her own initial reaction was keeping thousands of Velkari from accessing resources that could rebuild their civilization. We need to go to them, Zara said without hesitation. That's what I hoped you'd say, Marcus replied. But it won't be easy. Some of these groups have been hiding for so long they've developed almost cult-like isolation. Others are controlled by leaders who profit from keeping their people dependent and afraid. Dr. Chen entered the lab carrying a cup of tea and a concerned expression. I couldn't help overhearing. Are you seriously considering a diplomatic mission to scattered refugee populations? Not just diplomatic, Zara corrected. Educational. These people need to see what I've learned. They need to understand the truth about what happened to our worlds and what humans are really like. Emma looked up from her workstation across the room. The Harmony Protocol isn't ready for field testing yet. If these communities are as paranoid as Marcus suggests, they'll want proof that human protection actually works. Then we make it work, Zara said firmly. How long for a basic prototype? 2 weeks if we focus on essential systems only, Dr. Chen replied. But that's cutting things very close. One miscalculation and the whole system could fail spectacularly. Or it could save 50,000 lives, Zara countered. Marcus studied the star map thoughtfully. There's another problem. Some of these survivor groups are in territories controlled by hostile forces. Pirates, isolationist governments, corporate security zones. Getting to them would require coalition military escort, which would only reinforce their fears about human aggression, Zara realized. They see a human warship approaching and assume it's another attack. Emma snapped her fingers suddenly. What if we don't use human ships? Everyone turned to look at her. The young engineer was practically vibrating with excitement as she worked through her idea. We build a Velkari ship, she continued, or at least something that looks Velkari. Use human technology for the important systems, but design the hull and external features to match traditional Velkari aesthetics. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. That's actually brilliant. A ship that appears Velkari but incorporates our latest defensive technologies. It would serve as both a diplomatic vessel and a demonstration of what human Velkari cooperation can achieve. Zara felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. A ship that shows my people they don't have to choose between their culture and human protection. They can have both. I'll need detailed plans of traditional Velkari ship designs, Emma said, already pulling up design software. And we'll have to integrate the Harmony Protocol systems without compromising the cultural authenticity. I can provide the cultural details, Zara replied. My father was a shipwright before he became a merchant. I grew up in his construction yards. Marcus activated his communication device. I'll need to clear this with Coalition Command. Building a disguised diplomatic vessel, even for humanitarian purposes, requires high-level approval. How long? Zara asked. 48 hours for initial approval. Maybe a week for full authorization if they agree to the plan. That evening, Zara found herself standing in the observation deck, looking out at the stars and thinking about her scattered people. 50,000 Velkari, afraid and alone, rejecting help because they'd been taught to fear the very beings trying to save them. Emma joined her at the viewport, carrying 2 cups of keth. Credits for your thoughts? I'm thinking about fear, Zara replied, accepting the warm beverage. How it shapes everything we do, every decision we make. My people are dying because they're too afraid to accept help. Fear kept them alive when Rodriguez's pirates were hunting survivors, Emma pointed out. Sometimes fear is useful, and sometimes it becomes a prison, Zara countered. I spent months hating all humans because I was afraid to believe anything else might be true. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships move through the space around the station. Human vessels, Therian traders, crystalline research ships, and dozens of others, all coexisting in the same small patch of space. Zara, Emma said eventually, what if they don't believe you? What if you show up in a Velkari ship, explain everything that really happened, demonstrate the Harmony Protocol, and they still refuse to trust humans? It was a question that had been haunting Zara since Marcus first told her about the survivor populations. What if her people were too damaged by trauma and propaganda to accept the truth? Then I keep trying, she said finally. I find new ways to show them that cooperation isn't surrender, that accepting human help doesn't mean losing Velkari identity, that survival and dignity aren't mutually exclusive. Emma smiled. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were going to try to kill me. I considered it, Zara admitted with dark humor. But then I realized you were trying to fix the damage your mother had done. That took courage. Or stupidity. Maybe both, Zara said. But sometimes courage and stupidity look very similar from the outside. Marcus appeared in the doorway of the observation deck. Coalition Command approved the mission, he announced. We have authorization to build a culturally appropriate diplomatic vessel and attempt contact with Velkari survivor populations. Zara felt her heart race. All of them? As many as we can reach safely, Marcus confirmed. They're assigning the heavy cruiser Harmony as escort, but it will maintain distance and only intervene if you're in immediate danger. When do we start? Emma asked. Construction begins tomorrow, Marcus replied. But Zara, you need to understand the risks. Some of these populations have been isolated for months. Others are controlled by leaders who might see your message as a threat to their authority. There's no guarantee they'll listen. Zara turned back to the viewport, looking out at the vast galaxy where her people waited in fear and uncertainty. 50,000 Velkari who needed to know that hope still existed, that their species could have a future. They'll listen, she said with quiet confidence, because I'm going to give them something they've been missing since our worlds burned. What's that? Marcus asked. A choice, Zara replied. The chance to choose hope instead of fear. The ship that emerged from Coalition construction yards 3 weeks later was unlike anything in the galaxy. From the outside, it appeared to be a traditional Velkari exploration vessel, complete with the flowing curves and crystalline viewing ports that characterized her people's aesthetic. The hull bore traditional Velkari symbols of peace and exploration, painted in the deep blues and silvers that represented unity and wisdom in her culture. But beneath the familiar exterior lay the most advanced defensive and diplomatic technology the Coalition could provide. Harmony protocol generators hummed quietly in the engineering sections. Communication arrays capable of real-time translation between hundreds of languages lined the hull. Medical bays equipped to treat dozens of different species occupied the lower decks. Zara stood on the bridge of what they'd named the New Dawn, running her hands over controls that felt hauntingly familiar, despite their advanced technology. Emma had somehow managed to make human systems respond like Velkari interfaces, complete with the subtle harmonic feedback that Velkari pilots used for navigation. It feels like home, she whispered to Marcus, who was reviewing final system checks. That was the idea, he replied. Emma spent 2 weeks just getting the bridge harmonics right. The young engineer in question was currently crawling through maintenance shafts, making last-minute adjustments to the defensive systems. Her voice echoed from the comm system as she worked. Zara, can you test the cultural authentication display? I want to make sure it's properly calibrated. Zara activated the requested system, and the main view screen filled with scrolling text in traditional Velkari script. It was the opening passage of the Songs of Beginning, the foundational epic that every Velkari child learned by heart. But this version included verses that had been lost when the great libraries burned, verses that existed now only in the memories of scattered survivors. Where did you find the complete text? Zara asked, her voice thick with emotion. Emma's head appeared from an access panel near the ceiling. I interviewed 47 different Velkari survivors over the past month. Each one remembered different parts. Together, they were able to reconstruct almost the entire cycle. The revelation stunned Zara into silence. While she'd been focused on technical preparations, Emma had been quietly working to preserve Velkari culture, collecting fragments of memory and weaving them back together into something whole. Dr. Chen entered the bridge carrying a final report. All systems are green. Life support can handle extended operations for up to 50 different species simultaneously. The Harmony Protocol generators are functioning within acceptable parameters. Medical bay is stocked with treatments for every known Velkari ailment, plus a few we hope we never encounter. What about the crew? Zara asked. That's up to you, Marcus replied. Coalition regulations require at least one certified pilot and one medical officer for a mission of this scope. Beyond that, you choose who comes with you. Zara looked around the bridge that would soon be her responsibility. The weight of 50,000 lives pressed down on her shoulders. These people were depending on her to overcome decades of fear and propaganda, to convince them that cooperation with humans wasn't betrayal of everything they'd lost. I want a small crew, she decided. Too many humans will seem threatening, but some human presence is necessary to demonstrate trust. Emma, obviously. Dr. Chen for medical support. Marcus for diplomatic credentials. What about security? Dr. Chen asked. Some of these survivor groups might react violently to unexpected contact. No weapons, Zara said firmly. The moment they see human military equipment, all credibility is lost. We rely on shields and negotiation. Emma climbed down from her maintenance work, wiping grease from her hands. The Harmony Protocol should protect us from most conventional weapons. And if someone tries to ram us with a ship, well, that's what the emergency transport beacon is for. Their first destination was a refugee camp in the Kepler borderlands, reportedly home to nearly 3,000 Velkari survivors. According to Coalition intelligence, the camp was controlled by a former Velkari military officer named Commander Thess, who had declared himself the legitimate government of the Velkari people in exile, as he. The new dawn dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Zara felt her stomach twist with nervous energy. Everything they'd worked for over the past months would be tested in the next few hours. Incoming transmission, Marcus reported from the communications station. Audio only, heavily encrypted. Put it through, Zara said. The voice that filled the bridge spoke Velkari with the formal cadence of military protocol. Unknown vessel, you are entering protected space. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive action. Zara took a deep breath and activated the response channel. This is Zara Venth, daughter of Kos Venth of the Third Colony, survivor of the burning. I carry news of our scattered people and hope for our future. A long silence followed, broken only by the background hum of ship systems. When the response came, the voice was different, older, carrying the weight of authority and barely contained suspicion. I am Commander Thess of the Velkari Defense Force. If you are truly Velkari, you will know the response to this challenge. When the first ships touched the void between worlds, what did they carry besides hope? Zara smiled despite her nerves. It was a traditional greeting from the Songs of Beginning, one that required knowledge no outsider would possess. They carried the dreams of those who would never see the stars, and the promise to honor their sacrifice. Another pause. Then, you may approach the station, Zara Venth, but know that you are watched, and any hostile action will be met with force. The refugee camp materialized on their screens as they drew closer. It wasn't really a camp at all, but a collection of asteroid habitats connected by transport tubes, hidden in the debris field of a collapsed moon. Defensive platforms bristled with weapons that looked improvised but effective. Impressive, Dr. Chen murmured. They've built a hidden fortress out of space junk and determination. Don't underestimate desperate people with nothing left to lose, Marcus warned. They've had months to prepare for unwanted visitors. The new dawn was guided to a docking bay that had obviously been carved out of a large asteroid. As they settled into the berth, Zara could see faces pressed against observation windows, dozens of Velkari staring at what appeared to be a ship from their lost homeworlds. Commander Thess was waiting for them in the airlock. He was an older Velkari, his scales scarred by what looked like combat wounds, his bearing radiating the kind of authority that came from keeping people alive in impossible circumstances. Two younger Velkari flanked him, obviously bodyguards despite their attempt to appear casual. Zara Venth, he said formally, you are welcome in free Velkari space, but your companions are not. The challenge was immediate and direct. Zara had expected this, but it still stung to have her human friends dismissed so quickly. Commander, these people risked their lives to bring me here. They've worked for months to develop technologies that could protect our people. They deserve the courtesy of basic introduction. Thess's eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus, Emma, and Dr. Chen. Humans. I should have expected as much. Tell me, Zara Venth, how long have you been their prisoner? I'm not their prisoner, Zara replied calmly. I'm their partner. The word hung in the air like an accusation. One of Thess's bodyguards actually took a step backward, as if Zara had admitted to some terrible crime. Partner, Thess repeated, his voice dripping with disgust. You stand with the species that burned our worlds, killed our families, scattered our people across the galaxy. And you call yourself their partner? The humans didn't burn our worlds, Zara said firmly. Pirates did. Pirates using stolen human ships and weapons. These humans helped me learn the truth, and they're helping me bring that truth to our people. Commander Thess laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Ah, the classic lie. It wasn't us, it was criminals using our equipment. Do you expect me to believe that humans had no knowledge or control over their own military vessels? Emma stepped forward despite the obvious hostility directed at her. Commander, I understand your skepticism, but I have proof. She pulled out a data pad and offered it to Thess. Technical specifications for the weapons used in the attacks, showing the modifications that prove they were black market purchases, not military-grade equipment, communication logs from the pirate fleet, financial records showing connections to corporate interests that profited from the raids. Thess didn't take the offered device. Human evidence provided by humans to support human claims. How convenient. Then don't trust the evidence, Zara interjected. Trust me. I'm Velkari. I lost my family in the attacks just like you did. I have no reason to lie to protect humans unless what I'm telling you is true. For the first time since their arrival, uncertainty flickered across Thess's features. Zara pressed her advantage. Commander, you've kept 3,000 of our people alive in these asteroids. That's an incredible achievement. But is this living or is this just surviving? Are Velkari children learning our songs and stories? Are our artists creating new works? Are our scientists making discoveries? Or are we all just waiting to die as the last generation of a dead species? Commander Thess led them through corridors carved from living rock, past chambers where Velkari families had made homes in spaces never meant for habitation. Children peered out from doorways with curiosity and caution, their scales dull from poor nutrition despite their parents' best efforts. Adults watched the procession with expressions that mixed hope and suspicion in equal measure. The central chamber of the asteroid base took Zara's breath away. Someone had carved an enormous space from the heart of the rock and covered the walls with murals depicting scenes from Velkari history. The artwork wasn't perfect, created with whatever materials the refugees could find, but it captured the essence of their lost civilization with heartbreaking beauty. The children painted most of it, Thess explained, noticing her amazement. They were forgetting what home looked like, so the elders organized art sessions to help them remember. Emma moved closer to examine the murals, her engineer's eye appreciating both the artistry and the technical challenge of creating such work in a hostile environment. The detail is incredible. They've recreated architectural features that would be impossible to remember without intimate knowledge. Memory is all we have left, said an elderly Velkari woman who approached from the shadows. I am Vera Kethis, keeper of the old ways. I was a historian before the burning. Zara recognized the name immediately. Vera Kethis had been one of the most respected scholars in Velkari space, author of definitive works on their species' cultural development. Finding her alive was like discovering a lost library. Dr. Kethis, your work on the third colony migrations influenced my father's shipping routes, Zara said respectfully. He often quoted your research on optimal trade patterns. Vera's expression softened slightly. Cosventh was your father? He had an excellent reputation among the merchant families. His loss was mourned widely. The personal connection seemed to ease some of the tension in the chamber. Commander Thess gestured for everyone to sit around a circular table that had been fashioned from polished asteroid material. Now then, he said, explain to me why I should trust humans after everything they've done to us. Zara took a deep breath and began with her own story. She described her capture, her initial terror, and her gradual realization that everything she'd believed about humans was wrong. She talked about Marcus's patience, Emma's guilt over her mother's crimes, and Dr. Chen's dedication to helping refugee populations. When she finished, Vera Kethis leaned forward. You speak of individual humans behaving with honor, but what of their species as a whole? What of their government's policies toward other civilizations? Dr. Chen cleared her throat. May I respond to that? Commander Thess nodded grudgingly. The Coalition currently provides protection and aid to 47 different species. Dr. Chen began. In every case, we've maintained their cultural autonomy and governmental independence. We've never forcibly relocated a population, never imposed human laws or customs, never demanded tribute or service in exchange for protection. And in return? Vera asked skeptically. Trade partnerships usually, cultural exchange programs, scientific collaboration, sometimes nothing more than friendship and the knowledge that the galaxy is a little less lonely. Marcus activated a holographic display showing the Coalition's current membership. These are the species currently under human protection. As you can see, they've maintained their distinct cultures and governments. Many have thrived under the security umbrella we provide. Tess studied the display with obvious interest, though he tried to hide it. What about military service? Do you conscript soldiers from protected species? Never, Marcus said firmly. Coalition military service is entirely voluntary, and humans make up roughly 90% of all combat personnel. Protected species contribute according to their abilities and inclinations, not according to human demands. A younger Velkari who had been listening from the edge of the group spoke up. What about the harmony protocol that Zara mentioned? How do we know it actually works? Emma's eyes lit up. We can demonstrate it right now if you'd like. The new Dawn is equipped with a full Harmony Protocol defensive grid. We could run a simulation using your defensive batteries. Commander Thess looked intrigued despite himself. You're suggesting we fire on your ship? With practice charges, yes, Emma confirmed. The Harmony Protocol should adapt to your weapon signatures and neutralize them without damage to either side. The demonstration took place an hour later in the asteroid field surrounding the refugee camp. Zara stood on the New Dawn's bridge, watching as the refugee camp's defensive platforms powered up their weapons. Part of her still couldn't believe she was about to let her own people shoot at her. Harmony Protocol activated, Emma announced from the engineering station. All systems nominal. The first salvo came from the camp's primary plasma batteries, bright streaks of energy that would have vaporized any conventional ship. But as they struck the New Dawn shield, something extraordinary happened. The defensive grid didn't just absorb the energy, it analyzed it, adapted to it, and redistributed it harmlessly into space. Incredible, came Commander Thess's voice over the communication channel. The energy signature just vanished. It's like the shots never happened. Emma grinned at her displays. The system identified the weapon type, calculated the optimal harmonic counter frequency, and nullified the attack in 0.3 seconds. Now it's prepared for additional shots using the same technology. The second volley came from multiple angles, simulating a coordinated attack. Once again, the Harmony Protocol adapted and countered, this time even faster than before. The more it learns about your weapons, the better it gets at defending against them, Zara explained to the amazed Velkari watching the test. But the same system could protect your asteroid habitats, your ships, your colonies. When they returned to the central chamber, the atmosphere had changed noticeably. Where before there had been suspicion and hostility, now there was cautious interest and the beginning of hope. The technology is impressive, Commander Thess admitted, but technology can be stolen, reverse-engineered, turned against its creators. What guarantee do we have that humans won't use these same defenses to dominate us later? Vera Kethis, who had been studying the technical specifications Emma provided, looked up from her datapad. The mathematical principles are sound, but they require massive computational resources to implement effectively. Only a species with quantum processing capabilities could make this work on a large scale, which means humans could shut down any Harmony Protocol system whenever they wanted. Thess concluded grimly. Actually, no, Emma said quickly. The final production systems are designed with distributed processing. Each protected world maintains its own quantum cores, completely independent of human control. We're not creating dependence, we're sharing knowledge. And what happens when you decide we're no longer worth protecting? Asked the younger Velkari. What happens when human priorities change? The question hung heavy in the chamber. It was the core fear that drove all the suspicion and resistance. What guarantee could humans offer that they wouldn't abandon or betray their protected species? Marcus stood up slowly, his expression serious. We can't guarantee that individual humans will always act honorably. Emma's mother proved that our species is capable of terrible things. But I can tell you what the Coalition has learned over the past century. He paused, making sure he had everyone's attention. Diversity makes us stronger. Every species we've partnered with has contributed something unique to our collective knowledge and capabilities. The Therian mathematics that help optimize the Harmony Protocol, crystalline energy manipulation techniques that revolutionized our power systems, Velkari harmonic engineering that makes faster-than-light communication possible. He gestured around the chamber. Your people's cultural achievements, your art, your music, your philosophical traditions. These aren't just beautiful, they're valuable. They represent ways of understanding the universe that humans never would have discovered on our own. Zara felt a surge of pride at Marcus's words, but also a deep sadness. So much Velkari knowledge had already been lost in the burning of their worlds. Besides, Dr. Chen added with a slight smile, betraying protected species would be incredibly stupid from a practical standpoint. Happy, prosperous allies are much more valuable than conquered enemies. Oppression requires enormous resources to maintain. Cooperation generates mutual benefits. Commander Thess was quiet for a long time, studying the faces around the table. Finally he spoke. What exactly are you proposing? Specifically, Zara leaned forward. Cooperation, not absorption. The Coalition helps relocate Velkari survivors to suitable worlds, provides Harmony Protocol defenses, assists with reconstruction efforts. In return, we contribute our knowledge and capabilities to the greater galactic community. And we maintain our independence? Completely, Marcus confirmed. You choose your own leaders, make your own laws, preserve your own culture. The only requirement is peaceful coexistence with other Coalition species. Vera Kethis set down her datapad and looked directly at Zara. Child, you truly believe these humans can be trusted? I believe individuals like Marcus, Emma, and Dr. Chen can be trusted, Zara replied carefully. And I believe... 6 months later, Zara stood on the observation deck of New Velkara Station, watching construction ships from a dozen different species work together to build the first permanent Velkari settlement since the burning of their homeworlds. The space station hung in orbit around a beautiful water world that the Coalition had designated as humanity's gift to the Velkari people, a new home where they could rebuild their civilization. The planet below showed signs of terraforming in progress. Velkari atmospheric engineers worked alongside human climate specialists and Therian ecosystem designers to create an environment that would support not just Velkari physiology, but Velkari culture. Cities were being planned around traditional architectural principles, with flowing curves and crystalline structures that would sing in harmony with the planet's natural wind patterns. The first transport arrives tomorrow, Marcus announced, joining her at the viewport. 300 families from the Kepler camp, plus Dr. Kethis and her cultural preservation team. Zara smiled, remembering the elderly historian's excitement when she learned that the Coalition had recovered several Velkari art pieces from black market dealers across the galaxy. Stolen treasures from their lost worlds were slowly finding their way home. What about Commander Thess? She asked. He's staying at Kepler for now, Marcus replied. Someone needs to coordinate with the other refugee camps. But he's agreed to join the new Velkara government once the planetary settlements are established. The transformation of Thess from suspicious isolationist to cautious collaborator had taken months of patient demonstration. But when he saw the first Velkari children playing in areas protected by Harmony Protocol shields, when he watched Coalition medical teams treat Velkari patients with the same care they showed human patients, when he observed Emma teaching young Velkari engineers the principles behind human quantum processing, his resistance had gradually melted away. Emma appeared beside them, her engineering coveralls replaced by formal clothes for the upcoming ceremony. The Harmony Protocol network is fully operational, she reported. 47 orbital platforms, each one capable of protecting the entire planet from anything short of a planet-killer weapon. And if someone does bring a planet killer? Zara asked, only half joking. Then the Coalition First Fleet responds, Marcus said seriously. The same protection we provide to Earth. The promise still amazed Zara. Humans were offering to defend New Velkara with the same military commitment they reserved for their own homeworld. It was either the ultimate expression of trust or the most elaborate deception in galactic history. Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the station's communication system. All personnel to the main assembly hall. The ceremony is about to begin. The ceremony was simple by Velkari standards, but profoundly meaningful. Representatives from all 49 Coalition species had gathered to formally welcome the Velkari people back to galactic civilization. Zara found herself at the center of it all, wearing traditional Velkari robes that had been recreated by refugees who remembered the old patterns. Zara Venth, announced the Coalition Secretary General, a dignified human woman named Administrator Parks. On behalf of the Galactic Coalition of Independent Worlds, it is my honor to formally recognize the Velkari people as a protected species and welcome New Velkara as the 48th member world of our alliance. Applause filled the hall, but Zara barely heard it. She was thinking about her father, who had dreamed of seeing his people take their place among the stars as equals, not refugees. She was thinking about her brother, who had died trying to defend their world with shields that weren't strong enough. She was thinking about all the Velkari who had perished believing that humanity was their enemy. When the formal ceremonies ended, Zara found herself in the station's memorial garden, a quiet space where representatives of every coalition species had planted something from their homeworld. The Velkari contribution was a small sapling from a preserved seed bank, one of the few living remnants of their original forests. Emma found her there, sitting quietly beside the small tree. "You did it," the young engineer said softly. "You brought your people home." "We did it," Zara corrected. "All of us together." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars through the transparent dome overhead. Ships moved through the space around the station, heading to and from New Velkara with supplies and personnel for the growing colony. "Do you ever wonder if we're making a mistake?" Emma asked suddenly. "If this whole enterprise is too good to be true?" Zara considered the question seriously. "Every day," she admitted. "But then I see Velkari children learning to read in schools protected by human shields. I see human doctors treating Velkari patients. I see our species working together to build something neither could create alone." She gestured toward the planet below, where lights were beginning to flicker on as night fell across the new settlements. "Maybe it won't last forever," she continued. "Maybe someday humans and Velkari will find reasons to distrust each other again. But for now, for today, my people have hope. That's more than we had 6 months ago." Marcus appeared at the garden entrance carrying a datapad and wearing an expression of mixed excitement and concern. "Zara, you need to see this." The datapad displayed a message from Coalition Deep Space Monitoring. Long-range sensors had detected an unknown fleet moving toward Coalition space, ships of a design no one recognized. The fleet was massive, potentially hostile, and would reach the outer rim in approximately 6 months. "Another invasion?" Zara asked, feeling cold dread settle in her stomach. "We don't know yet," Marcus replied. "But if it is, this will be the first real test of Coalition unity. 48 different species, all with their own strengths and capabilities working together to face a common threat." Emma studied the tactical display with growing excitement rather than fear. "Do you realize what this means? If we can coordinate 48 different military doctrines, 48 different technologies, 48 different ways of understanding warfare, we'll have capabilities that no single species could match." "Including humans?" Zara asked. "Especially including humans," Emma confirmed. "Humans are good at lots of things, but we're not the best at everything. Therian mathematics, crystalline energy manipulation, Velkari harmonic engineering, Altarian tactical analysis, Centaurian logistics, Draconian heavy weapon systems. Put it all together, and you get something unprecedented in galactic history." Zara looked down at New Velkara, where her people were building their new civilization under the protection of human shields. 6 months ago, she had feared that humans would devour her people. Now she was wondering if humans and their allies might be strong enough to protect everyone from whatever was coming out of the dark between stars. "You know what the real irony is?" she said to her human friends. "I came to you as a refugee convinced your species was made of monsters. But you turned out to be something much more dangerous." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Optimists," Zara replied with a smile that held both affection and concern. "You actually believe that 48 different species can work together to build something better than any of us could achieve alone? Don't you believe it too?" Dr. Chen asked, joining their group in the garden. Zara looked around at her friends, human beings who had risked their careers and lives to help a species they'd never met before the pirate attacks. She thought about Emma, carrying the burden of her mother's crimes and transforming it into a force for healing. She remembered Marcus sitting patiently in a detention cell while a traumatized alien decided whether to trust him. Yes, she said finally. Against all logic and experience, I believe it too. The unknown fleet was still 6 months away, but preparations were already beginning. New Velkara would contribute their harmonic engineering expertise to the Coalition's defensive preparations. Human strategic planners would coordinate with Altarian tacticians and Draconian weapons specialists. Therian mathematicians would optimize logistics with Centaurian transportation experts. For the first time in galactic history, an alliance of equals would face the darkness together. And at the center of it all, a Velkari refugee who had feared humans would devour her people, now worked alongside those same humans to protect everything they had built together. The stars wheeled overhead, beautiful and mysterious and full of unknown dangers, but they no longer seemed quite so vast or quite so cold. In the growing light of New Velkara, surrounded by friends she never could have imagined, Zara felt something she thought she'd lost forever when her world burned. She felt like she belonged to something larger than herself, something worth defending, something worth the risk of hope. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but it was no longer empty. Wherever the unknown fleet came from, whatever intentions drove it across the void, it would find not scattered, frightened species hiding from each other, but a coalition of worlds standing together. And perhaps that would make all the difference.